David, that's a nice thing you're doing. It's a nice thing that John's doing for those families as well.
Yeah, we love John. Obviously, John Sterling's a great guy and love to help him out. And, hey, I heard there was open bar, too, so, hey, that's a big draw. You're right.
All right, Curt Schilling was on with us earlier, and he said, David, that if he was starting a team right now and he had to take a pitcher that's under 25 years old, it would be Matt Harvey. Do you agree?
That's a good pick. I really do. Even with the surgery that he's coming off of, you have to assume that they're going to take it slow with him this year and protect him. But I really thought he was one of the best young starting pitchers that I'd seen come in the game in a long time, mainly because of the combination of the power and his control as well. And 4 pitches. Rarely do you see guys that are young like that are that polished, that can throw a quality changeup, a quality curve, and a slider, 2 different kinds of breaking balls, and obviously that power fastball.
And then we'll find out. I mean, because there's no better pitcher right now in baseball than Clayton Kershaw, but then come playoff time, it's been a bit of a struggle for him. Are you able to see anything in his demeanor, how he's handled things, that he could be a good postseason performer?
Well, you don't know till you try. I mean, the postseason can be a bit of a crapshoot, even for a starting pitcher, because a lot of times you're relying on run support. The postseason are tight games, usually a lot of close, low-scoring games. So, a pitcher's win-loss record can be a little deceiving in postseason, but I do see Matt Harvey as the type of pitcher who can dominate a game, who can take over and actually almost single-handedly win the game or put your team in a position to win a 1-0 or 2-1 game. And that's what the great pitchers do in those big games. That's what Schilling did a lot, was put his team in a position to win. When you got a lead early in the game, you did not give it up, and you went deep into the game. And I see Matt Harvey as that type of guy, definitely. I think a handful of pitchers, he's in the category. Jose Fernandez, when he comes back, Clayton Kershaw, certainly Matt Harvey belongs in that category of pitchers.
Now, David, the plan that the Mets have for him, I really approve of. They're going to try to limit innings where, like, if he's winning 9-0, they'll get him out after 5 innings and let the bullpen handle those 4 around the All-Star break, try to give him a couple of, start him on that Friday and then don't start him again until the Sunday of the next week. And they said if they make the playoffs, he's going to pitch. And I remember you were so dead set against what the Nationals did to Steven Strasburg, so it almost looks like the Mets went to school on that.
I think so. You just don't want to find yourself in a position to have to do that to one of your young pitchers. I really thought that it was devastating to Strasburg at the time, to his confidence, to the message it sent the entire team. And, I understand the Washington Nationals were trying to protect him, but there's better ways to protect guys. And I think it's more rest during the season, in between starts. Michael, we've talked about a 6-man rotation. I know the Yankees are talking about it right now. I really believe that that's the way that the game needs to go at this point. A lot of it based on the way a lot of these young pitchers are conditioned in the minor leagues coming up. They're not conditioned to go deep. It's hard to recover every 5 days for a lot of these young kids. So to me, a 6-man rotation, extra rest, skip a start here and there, but keep the guy on track. And that's the way I would have handled Strasburg back in the day, and that's the way I'd handle Harvey this year.
Now, a 2-pronged question for you, David. The Mets' problem is going to be up-the-middle defense. As presently constituted, if Flores is the shortstop and Murphy is the second baseman, that's not great defense. Now, I think it's less of a problem with DeGrom and Harvey being strikeout pitchers. Will you find, if you're a strikeout pitcher, to try to go for the strikeout more if you know your defense up the middle is so poor?
Yeah, I think absolutely. It reminds me of the days of Davey Johnson managing the Mets when he had an offensive lineup when Dwight Gooden or Sid Fernandez or me pitched on a particular day because he viewed us as strikeout pop-up type pitchers. So without a doubt, I knew what was expected of me. I was almost groomed to do that. And the days I pitched, if you remember, it would be Howard Johnson at shortstop and Mackey Sasser would catch, and every bat in the lineup he could get in the lineup he would do at the sacrifice of defense because he knew he had power arms in the rotation. So Davey Johnson was a big believer in that, and it does affect you on the mound.
The Yankees, as you mentioned, are talking about going to the 6-man rotation, and Brian Cashman said, it's an idea we're talking about. It's hard to execute. And I'm wondering, David, people get paid on wins, although there are advanced metrics now that don't put as much of an emphasis on wins. You're going to get a lot fewer starts. I mean, is it going to be tougher for the guys that have been around a while to say, okay, I'll give up 6 of my starts?
Yes, it will be. It will be a bit of a hard sell with, especially the front end guys, the guys that are really established, the guys that feel like that they don't need enough, they don't need too much rest, that they might lose a little feel for the baseball, maybe their control may suffer a little bit. But I believe that you can make adjustments. I believe if you err on the side of keeping these guys strong, go for quality over quantity, get 27, 28, even 30 starts, as opposed to 34 to 35 starts. I think if you could limit it by 4 to 5, that you'd see guys that would be stronger later in the year when they did pitch on their particular days, once they did make adjustments to extra rest and mainly with their routine in between starts, that they would thrive. They would thrive, and you would also be able to bring along other pitchers to develop. Your sixth starter is a guy that could be in AAA. Now he's in the big leagues, and you get to find out about him. You get to develop him on the big league level. So I think in the long run, it's a win-win for the organization. You get stronger starting pitchers later in the year because they've had more rest, and you get to develop a younger pitcher that you normally wouldn't get a look at.
See, I'm in complete favor of that, but what about a Wheeler, who is a completely different pitcher on 5 days rest than 4? Or a Mike Messina that was just so anal about the specific day that he pitched? What do you do with those guys who just maybe just can't do it?
Well, I believe that they could if given the proper time to adjust. I think there's going to be some bumps in the road early in the process, and I'm not saying that you implement a six-man rotation, a really rigid six-man rotation right away. But I think you slowly, gradually implement it over the course of a year, and you pick your spots, to miss a start, you pick your spots to pitch on extra rest. If these guys struggle with it, obviously, if they're guys like Mussina or guys that are really important to your staff, you could keep them on a five-man rotation and still juggle the other guys. And I tell you, it's not something that hasn't been done before. Casey Stengel did it with the Yankees. And Casey Stengel used to hold Whitey Ford back and do matchups with the teams that he thought were tougher, the better teams. Casey Stengel was a genius at juggling that rotation, mixing in his sixth starter, the spot starter, and keeping Whitey Ford for the best teams and the best matchups that he thought.
And a lot of people have told me from that time, David, that Whitey should have had way more than 236 wins, but Casey used him against teams that he needed to win against, and he used him judiciously, and he didn't get as many starts as he should have gotten.
He didn't, but he had a lot of quality to those starts that he did start. And if you remember, when Whitey Ford did go, finally when Casey Stengel left, it was Hank Bauer. I'm not sure of the manager. I'll check on that. But
Ralph
he actually
Howe
asked Whitey if he could pitch. Yeah, exactly. He asked Whitey if he could pitch on 4 days rest, on 3 days rest, rather, a four-man rotation. And Whitey said sure, and he thrived, but he ended up hurting his arm, too, right after that. So, do you like the Whitey Ford before on less starts who was healthy, or do you like the Whitey Ford after that ended up getting hurt because you pushed him too hard with a four-man rotation?
Talking with David Cone, who is going right now as we speak to the event hosted by John Sterling to benefit the displaced families of the Edgewater, New Jersey fire. It's at D&D's Bar and Restaurant, the 191 South Main Street in New City. $50 per ticket, and you can make the check payable to Edgewater Strong. Before I let you go, David, you were teammates with Doc. You were teammates with Darryl. The Josh Hamilton story is really heartbreaking. I guess I've evolved because a long time ago, well, how could he do that with all that money, disappoint his team? But it's really a sickness that you can't stop yourself.
Well, it certainly is, Michael. I mean, you really have to look at the backgrounds of some of the players, where they came from, what sort of life that they had to lead. Some of these guys come from extreme poverty. They come from no background with no fathers in the house. They get introduced to drugs early in their life. It becomes a disease. It really does. No two cases are the same, but the common denominator is that it is a disease. And the more we learn about it and the more that these guys bounce back, like a Darryl Strawberry now, who talks very candidly about the mistakes he made, or Dwight Gooden, who talks very candidly as well about what he would tell his younger self. All of us wish we could go back and have that conversation with ourselves when we were Matt Harvey's age and give advice. And, the more you learn about the plight of these guys, the more you realize what a disease it really is.
David, thanks for popping on. Have a good time at this event.
Thanks a lot, Michael. Thanks for having me on.